Hello, Protestant Community Church, Cathedral of the Woods family. I'm here tonight to talk to you about regathering. Now, before you get your calendars out, whatever form of calendar you use, and get too excited, I don't have a date to give you tonight for regathering. What I want to discuss with you are some regathering principles and some decisions that were reached by your worship team in its last meeting. Let's begin tonight by looking at the regathering principles that we are using to guide our discussion on our future regathering. First, the primary goal of regathering is spiritual and not social. Any derived social benefit that comes from regathering is secondary. Secondly, the primary precaution in regathering is not to be a vector for spreading the virus. As such, all precautions will need to be observed, including mandatory masking, social distancing, and limiting to a minimum any personal interactions that you have from the time of your arrival on campus to the time of your departure from campus. Thirdly, the primary concern in gathering will be to not impact public health negatively. At such point that we do regather, if it becomes apparent that we are having an impact on our community or our larger world, we will return immediately to online services only. Fourthly, the primary difficulty with outdoor gathering is unpredictability in a number of areas, and secondarily, the logistics of pulling off an outdoor gathering. Fifthly, the primary temptation is to just do something in person, to just gather together. Jesus teaches us to resist temptation that is not good for us or for our larger community, in favor of that which is good for both. Sixthly, I think, the primary virtue that must be exercised in planning and implementing regathering is patience. Now, I'm just like you. I don't care much for lessons in patience, but this pandemic has been a lesson in patience for all of us. And we must continue to exercise patience in developing a regathering process, patience in determining when it is safe to regather, patience in evaluating the safety concerns, the evolving public health issues, and many other things that will be a part of our actual regathering. Seventhly, I think, the primary hope of regathering is to be a source of strength for each other, for our world, and to give God a good reputation. Anything short of those hopes are less than we want to be as a community. Having considered those 7 principles, here are some questions that have to be answered in detail before regathering. And these are the questions that your worship team is wrestling with in this time. First, what is our detailed, specific reopening plan? This plan must address needed personnel, the duties of those personnel, how they will be informed and trained to carry out their duties. Let me say to you that the worship team is willing to consider any proposed plan for regathering that answers these questions and adheres to the current guidelines, so long as the plan is put in writing and presented to the worship team. Proponents of a plan are welcome to attend the regularly scheduled, socially distanced worship team meeting. The upcoming meeting for July will be held on Wednesday, July the 15th, 2020, beginning at 6 o'clock. The August meeting will be held on Wednesday, August the 19th, 2020, beginning at 6 o'clock. These meetings will be in the church office unless numbers require us to move to the sanctuary for appropriate social distancing. Another question: when do we project that our reopening plan might be in place to allow regathering? How do we most responsibly reopen? These are questions of logistics that include but are not limited to indicating which spaces will be usable for seating in our worship facilities, cleaning those spaces between their uses, what spaces we plan to use for worship, for the restroom, and etc. And how many services do we plan to offer? Based on those principles and those questions, this is the worship team meeting report from June the 29th, 2020. After much discussion, the worship team reached the following interim conclusions. First, we need more time to determine a proper course of action for appropriate regathering. This course must include answers to the complexities of the cleaning requirements which have resulted from the pandemic. Who will clean the worship space between services if we have more than one service? Who will clean the restrooms between each use as required by current guidelines? Which restrooms will we open? And many other questions of that nature. Secondly, given the new demands that will inevitably fall to ushers to fulfill, who will volunteer to fill those roles? If you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, this is a good time to contact Norma Kays and to tell her you would be one of those people who would be willing to be an usher in this new context. We anticipate at the very least that ushers will have to ensure the presence and use of a mask by each person who decides to come to worship, the use of hand sanitizer each time someone passes in and out of the entrance door, the appropriate distancing between non-family groups, and several other issues, in addition to the issues and responsibilities that already exist for ushers. Also, a number of potential reopening dates were proposed, but the consensus of the worship team was that we are not comfortable with setting an artificial date that may have to be changed based on health trends and the evolving nature of the information that is known about the virus. We feel that when a date is established, we desire to be relatively certain that we can proceed with that date. We don't want to create any false hopes. We don't want to diminish any expectations given everything else that our church family has already been through in the course of this pandemic. Also, given the dynamics of our congregation and the configuration of our church campus, we do not feel that outdoor services are feasible. Also, should the need arise, we do feel that following the current established guidelines, we can provide a family with a memorial service. At present, all established protocols would apply, including a limit of 75 people total in attendance, which is 25% of our present established sanctuary capacity. Required masking, social distancing, no congregational singing, and no family receiving line. We realize that that would make a memorial service look very different than anyone has probably ever experienced. But if we need to accommodate one, those are the restrictions around which we will have to work. Again, let me say to you, we are open to plans and proposals which address the needs of the current situation. And we invite you to submit those in writing and to join us in a socially distanced worship team meeting at any of the dates that I have given you earlier. We call our conclusions interim because they are subject to change as the period of time we are living in evolves. We know that circumstances in this pandemic are changing every day, and we intend to stay in contact and make our decisions based on the latest and best information. Please understand that, like you, we are going through this event for the first time in our lives and learning best practices and making appropriate changes as we go. We hope that soon we will be able to join together as the body of Christ. But as we remain physically separated for the time being, do not lose hope in the promise that greater is He who is in us than he who is in the world. Blessings from your PCC Cathedral of the Woods worship team. That team includes Norma Kays, who is the vice president of the team and the board of trustees representative, Jane Smith, Lou Cobb, Rick Taylor, Carol Volstrom, and yours truly, the Reverend Dr. R. Tim Meadows, who serves as an ex officio member of that team. Hopefully, this presentation is helpful to you in where we are in the regathering process. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at tim@protestantcommunitychurch.org or contact the church office and leave a message for me to give you a call. May the blessing of God continue to be with you as we all make our way through this very strange and different time in our world.